Most people can name the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, Niagara Falls, but America has a whole second tier of natural wonders that almost nobody outside of the people who live near them has ever heard of. And some of them are genuinely more impressive than the famous ones. These are the 10 hidden natural wonders of America. You won't believe they exist. Number 10. The Waitomo-style cave, glowworms of Dismal's Canyon, Phil Campbell, Alabama. Most people associate glowing cave organisms with New Zealand's Waitomo caves. Very few people know that a similar phenomenon exists in a private nature preserve in the foothills of northwest Alabama, tucked into a sandstone canyon that barely appears on most maps. Dismal's Canyon is a 85-acre nature preserve near the town of Phil Campbell in Franklin County, Alabama. The canyon itself is striking. Walls of ancient sandstone rising 40 feet above a stream-cut gorge draped in ferns and mosses, with a microclimate so distinct from the surrounding Alabama landscape that it feels immediately out of place. The canyon shelters a number of plant species typically found much further north, relict populations left over from the last ice age, when the climate here was significantly cooler. The phenomenon that makes the canyon genuinely remarkable happens after dark. The canyon is home to bioluminescent larvae of a fungus gnat species called Orphelia fultoni, known locally as dismalites. These larvae attach themselves to the damp sandstone walls and overhang of the canyon and produce a steady blue-green glow. At night, with no other light source, the effect is extraordinary. The canyon walls appear to be covered in a field of living stars at close range. Dismal's Canyon is one of only 2 places in the world where this particular species of bioluminescent larvae is found in concentrations large enough to produce the effect. The other is in New Zealand. Alabama is not typically the destination people think of when they imagine a bioluminescent canyon experience, which is exactly why most people who visit it are genuinely astonished when they see it. Night tours are offered by the preserve from spring through fall, and the tours deliberately limit group size to preserve the experience. Too much ambient light, even from a flashlight held at the wrong angle, washes out the glow. The canyon also has a small campground for visitors who want to spend the night. The sandstone walls, the fern-covered stream banks, the cold water running through the gorge, and the darkness full of glowing larvae make for a combination that is, by multiple accounts, one of the more quietly remarkable natural experiences available anywhere in the American South. Alabama is not typically the state that comes to mind when people plan a nature trip, which is honestly Alabama's loss and the visitor's gain. Number 9. The Fly Geyser, Washoe County, Nevada. The Fly Geyser in Washoe County, Nevada looks like something designed by a science fiction illustrator working on a generous deadline. It is a terraced mound of silica and calcium carbonate, rising from the desert floor in concentric shelves of brilliant orange, red, and green, with several active geysers shooting water continuously from the top. The colors come from thermophilic algae thriving in the mineral-laden water. It looks, in photographs, like something from another planet. In person, the effect is reportedly more disorienting, not less. The origin of the Fly Geyser is not geological in the traditional sense. It is partly man-made. A geothermal well was drilled on the property in 1964. When the well was abandoned, hot mineral-laden water found its way to the surface through the borehole and began depositing minerals around the opening. Over the following decades, the mineral deposits built up into the terraced structure visible today. The geyser has been growing and changing continuously since 1964, which means it looks slightly different every year. For most of its existence, the Fly Geyser was on private ranch land and was visible only from the road, close enough to see, not close enough to appreciate. The Burning Man Project purchased the property in 2016 as part of a larger parcel called Fly Ranch, with plans to eventually open it for public access in a managed way. Guided tours of limited capacity have been offered since around 2018, managed through a reservation system. The surrounding playa, the flat desert floor of the Black Rock Desert, is the same dry lake bed where the Burning Man Festival is held annually. The Fly Geyser sits within that landscape, but is not part of the festival. It is simply there, growing incrementally taller year by year on the Nevada desert floor, producing colors that have no business occurring in a desert and doing it entirely through chemistry and time. Number 8. The turquoise blue waters of Havasu Falls, Havasupai Reservation, Arizona. Havasu Falls is not entirely unknown. It has appeared in enough travel photography to have some level of public awareness. But the gap between how many people have seen a photograph of it and how many people have actually been there is extraordinary, because getting there requires a commitment that filters out casual visitors almost entirely. Havasu Falls drops about 100 feet into a turquoise blue pool at the bottom of a side canyon of the Grand Canyon on the Havasupai Tribal Reservation. The color of the water is the first thing people try and fail to adequately describe. It is an intense turquoise blue produced by high concentrations of calcium carbonate and magnesium in the water, which interact with sunlight in a way that produces a color that photographs consistently undersell. The falls are accessible only by a 10-mile hike from the trailhead at Hualapai Hilltop. 10 miles in, with a significant elevation change, and 10 miles out. There is no road to the falls or to Supai Village, the Havasupai community at the bottom of the canyon. Supai is one of the most remote, permanently inhabited communities in the contiguous United States. Mail is delivered there by pack mule, the only community in the lower 48 states for which that is still true. Permits to visit the falls and the campground below are issued by the Havasupai tribe and are in extremely high demand. The permit system has been revised multiple times in recent years as the tribe has worked to manage the volume of visitors seeking access. In some recent years, permits sold out within hours or minutes of becoming available. The Havasupai people have lived in the canyon for centuries. The falls, the blue-green pools, and the surrounding red canyon walls are their home, not a destination that exists for the benefit of outsiders. The permit system and the required 10-mile hike are, among other things, an effective mechanism for ensuring that only people who are genuinely committed make it there. Number 7. Bridal Veil Falls and the Ice Climbing Curtain, Ouray, Colorado. Ouray, Colorado calls itself the Switzerland of America, which is the kind of thing a town says when it has a legitimate case to make. The town sits in a box canyon in the San Juan Mountains of southwestern Colorado, surrounded on 3 sides by peaks that rise to over 13,000 feet, and it has a collection of waterfalls, hot springs, and mountain terrain within walking distance of the main street that would be nationally famous if it were located somewhere with better highway access. Bridal Veil Falls sits just outside the town of Telluride, about 30 miles from Ouray, and is the tallest free-falling waterfall in Colorado at 365 feet. At the top of the falls, a historic hydroelectric power plant built in 1907 clings to the cliff face, the oldest alternating current generating hydroelectric plant in the country that is still in its original location. The power plant is a National Historic Landmark. It is also, practically speaking, one of the most dramatically situated buildings in the United States, perched on a ledge above a 365-foot drop with mountain peaks behind it. In winter, the falls freeze, partially or fully, depending on the severity of the cold, and Ouray itself becomes the center of one of the more unusual outdoor recreation communities in the American West. The Ouray Ice Park, which occupies a gorge at the southern edge of town, is the world's first and largest man-made ice climbing park. It is fed by the town's water system, which pipes water into the gorge and allows it to freeze into ice curtains and pillars that climbers can access on a pay-what-you-wish basis. The surrounding area also contains the Ouray Hot Springs, natural thermal waters that have been developed into a public pool, and hundreds of miles of jeep trails and hiking routes through the San Juan Mountains. Ouray's permanent population is around 1,000 people. Its name recognition outside of the Mountain West is essentially zero. The gap between what it has to offer and how few people outside Colorado have heard of it is genuinely disproportionate. Number 6. The Cave of the Mounds, Blue Mounds, Wisconsin. The Cave of the Mounds is a registered National Natural Landmark located on a farm in Blue Mounds, Wisconsin, a description that does not begin to convey what is inside it. The cave was discovered in 1939 when a limestone quarrying operation blasted open its entrance, revealing a formation that had been developing underground for an estimated 1 million years, without any surface indication of its existence. The cave is relatively small by the standards of major American cave systems. The total passage length is about 1/3 of a mile, but it contains one of the densest concentrations of calcite formations per square foot of any cave in the country. Stalactites, stalagmites, helictites, cave pearls, flowstone, and rare cave formations called anthodites, which grow in needle-like clusters from the cave walls, are present in numbers and variety that exceed much larger and better-known cave systems. The cave maintains a constant temperature of 50 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, regardless of the Wisconsin weather above it. It was opened for public tours in 1940, just a year after its discovery, and has been operating continuously since, making it one of the longest-running commercial cave tours in the Midwest. What makes the Cave of the Mounds genuinely surprising is its context. It is located in a part of Wisconsin that is not associated with dramatic geology. The driftless area, a region that was not covered by the last glaciation, creating a distinct topography of steep valleys and limestone bluffs that runs counter to the flat agricultural landscape most people imagine when they think of Wisconsin. The driftless area is itself one of the less appreciated natural features of the upper Midwest. The cave sits on the Brigham Farm, a working agricultural property, and visitors walk through well-maintained grounds to reach the entrance. The juxtaposition of a quiet Wisconsin farm and a world-class cave formation beneath it is part of what makes the place memorable. Geologist and cave specialist William R. Halliday described it as one of the most decoratively diverse small caves in the United States. A description that sounds like faint praise until you've seen the density of formations inside. It is the kind of place that rewards people who show up without enormous expectations, which is how most people arrive, since most people have never been told to expect anything at all. Number 5. The Enchanted Rock, Fredericksburg, Texas. Enchanted Rock is a massive pink granite dome that rises 425 feet above the surrounding Texas Hill Country in Llano County, about 18 miles north of Fredericksburg. The dome itself is approximately 1 mile across at the base. It is one of the largest exposed batholiths in the United States, a formation created when molten rock intruded into existing rock layers and cooled slowly underground, then was exposed over millions of years as the overlying rock eroded away. The granite that forms Enchanted Rock is estimated to be about 1 billion years old, among the oldest exposed rock in Texas and one of the older surface rock formations in the United States. It is part of the Llano Uplift, a region of ancient Precambrian rock that was pushed toward the surface by geological forces over immense timescales and now forms the core of the Texas Hill Country. The rock is a Texas state natural area managed by Texas Parks and Wildlife and draws significant visitor numbers. It is, by attendance, one of the most visited state parks in Texas, so it is not entirely unknown within the state. What it lacks is national recognition relative to its actual geological significance and visual impact. The dome is genuinely large, genuinely striking, and genuinely old in ways that are difficult to fully communicate until you're standing on it. The surface of the dome supports a unique ecosystem of shallow soil habitats called rock barrens. Thin layers of organic material in depressions in the granite that support wildflowers, mosses, and specialized plant communities that exist only in this kind of exposed rock environment. Fairy shrimp, a species of small crustacean, live in the temporary pools that form in granite depressions after rain. The vernal pools on the rock's surface are among the only habitats where these organisms are found in central Texas. The name comes from the Tonkawa people, who considered the rock sacred. Legends described lights and sounds emanating from the dome at night, likely the result of the granite cooling and contracting after the heat of the day, producing creaking and groaning sounds in the darkness. The Tonkawa had been living in this landscape for centuries before European settlement, and the rock was already ancient when they arrived. Number 4. The Marble Canyon and Lee's Ferry, Coconino County, Arizona. The section of the Colorado River known as Marble Canyon runs for roughly 61 miles between Lee's Ferry at the southern end of Glen Canyon and the point where Marble Canyon technically transitions into the Grand Canyon proper. By any reasonable measure, it is one of the most dramatic river canyon landscapes in the American West. By the standards of national recognition, it is almost completely invisible. Marble Canyon was named by explorer and geologist John Wesley Powell during his 1869 survey of the Colorado River, the first documented journey through the canyon system. Powell named it for the polished limestone walls, which are not actually marble, but have the smooth, veined appearance of it when the river has been working on them for long enough. The walls rise to over 3,000 feet in places. Lee's Ferry itself is a significant historical location. It was the only practical crossing point on the Colorado River in this region for decades, used by settlers, the military, and the Mormon Church. John D. Lee established the ferry crossing in 1872, while a fugitive from federal law following his role in the Mountain Meadows Massacre of 1857, in which a wagon train of settlers was attacked and killed in southern Utah. He operated the ferry for years before being found, tried, and executed in 1877 at the massacre site. The ferry crossing continued to operate under other management until Navajo Bridge was built in 1929. Today, Lee's Ferry is the put-in point for Grand Canyon river trips, the launch point for every commercially operated and private whitewater expedition that runs the Colorado through the Grand Canyon. A few 100,000 people pass through the area every year for that purpose. The canyon walls above them, the history of the crossing, and the geological record written in the limestone layers, which represent an almost complete record of the geological periods from the Permian back through the Cambrian, receive less attention than the river trip itself. Glen Canyon Dam, completed in 1966 upstream of Lee's Ferry, fundamentally altered the river's character through this stretch. The water temperature, sediment load, and seasonal flow patterns all changed. The pre-dam Colorado ran warm, red, and variable. The post-dam Colorado at Lee's Ferry runs cold, clear, and regulated. The trout fishery that developed in the cold tailwater below the dam is now considered one of the best in the American West, an unintended consequence of a dam that drowned Glen Canyon and permanently altered one of the great river systems in North America. Number 3, the Sinks Canyon State Park, Lander, Wyoming. Most natural features earn their reputation gradually. Years of visitor accounts, nature photography, travel writing, and word of mouth building a consensus around something worth seeing. Sinks Canyon State Park in Fremont County, Wyoming has been doing something that defies easy explanation for as long as anyone has been paying attention, and it still barely registers on national radar. The Popo Agie River, pronounced Pu-Po-Ju, for anyone who plans to ask about it locally and would prefer not to immediately identify themselves as an outsider, flows down from the Wind River Mountains through the canyon. At a specific point in the canyon, the river disappears. It flows into a cave at the base of a limestone cliff, goes underground, and stops appearing on the surface for about a quarter of a mile. Then it reappears at a pool downstream called the Rise. That is not itself unusual. Rivers that flow into karst cave systems and re-emerge downstream are known as losing streams and exist in several places. What is unusual about the Popo Agie is the timing. Researchers have traced the water using dye, and the water that enters the cave takes approximately 2 hours to travel the quarter mile to the Rise. Given the volume of water and the distance involved, the hydrological math does not add up. The water should move faster than it does. The current explanation is that the underground passage acts as a reservoir, and that the water spreads into a larger underground space before finding its way to the Rise, but the exact configuration of that underground space is not fully mapped. The Rise Pool is also notable for what lives in it. Large brown and rainbow trout congregate in the pool and are visible from the adjacent path, attracted to the warmer water that emerges from the underground passage. The fish are not stocked, they simply live there. They are not particularly afraid of people, possibly because fishing is not permitted in the pool. Visitors report standing at the edge of the pool and watching fish the size of their forearms hanging in the clear water within arm's reach. The canyon itself is in the northern Rocky Mountains, with the Wind River Range rising at the head of the valley. It is, by any outdoor recreation standard, extraordinary terrain. Sinks Canyon State Park has a campground, hiking trails, and a visitor center that explains the hydrology. It is visited almost entirely by people who already live in Wyoming or who are passing through on the way to somewhere more famous. Number 2. The bioluminescent bay, Vieques, Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, which makes Mosquito Bay, the bioluminescent bay on the island of Vieques, American territory, and one of the most remarkable natural phenomena anywhere in the world under any flag. The bay is listed in the Guinness World Records as the brightest bioluminescent bay on Earth. The glow is produced by single-celled dinoflagellates called Pyridinium bahamense, microscopic organisms that emit a blue-green light when disturbed. They do this as a defense mechanism. The light startles potential predators, giving the dinoflagellates a fraction of a second to escape. The concentration of these organisms in Mosquito Bay is among the highest recorded anywhere, approximately 700,000 dinoflagellates per gallon of water in peak conditions. The conditions that produced this concentration are specific to Mosquito Bay's geography. The bay is semi-enclosed, with a narrow channel connecting it to the open ocean. The surrounding mangrove forests feed the water with nutrients from decaying vegetation. Vitamin B12 in particular is essential to the dinoflagellates. The water is relatively warm and shallow. The combination of factors that makes Mosquito Bay work as a bioluminescent environment is difficult to replicate, and fragile enough that similar bays around the world have lost their glow when surrounding mangroves were cleared or water quality degraded. In 2017, Hurricane Maria struck Puerto Rico with Category 4 force and caused severe damage across the island, including to the vegetation surrounding Vieques. The bioluminescent bay temporarily dimmed significantly in the months following the storm. By 2019, the bay had largely recovered. The dinoflagellate population had rebounded, though local environmental advocates continue to monitor the surrounding ecosystem carefully. Kayak tours of the bay operate at night under strict no-motor regulations. Gasoline residue kills the dinoflagellates. Paddling through water that glows around every stroke is described by most people who do it as one of the more genuinely surreal experiences available in the natural world. The glow is visible around each paddle stroke, in the wake behind the kayak, and, on a dark enough night, around the bodies of fish moving beneath the surface. As marine biologist Dr. Edith Witter, who has studied bioluminescence extensively, described it. Bioluminescence is the most common form of communication on Earth, and we almost never see it because most of it happens in the ocean's depths. When you can watch it happen around you in shallow water, it changes how you understand living things. Number 1. The Wave, Vermilion Cliffs National Monument, Arizona and Utah. The Wave is, among people who know about it, considered one of the most visually extraordinary rock formations in the world. Among the general American public, it is essentially unknown, protected partly by the permit system that limits access to 64 people per day and partly by the remote location that filters out anyone who isn't making a specific effort to get there. The formation is located in the Coyote Buttes North area of the Vermilion Cliffs National Monument, straddling the Arizona-Utah border near the town of Kanab, Utah. Getting there requires a 3-mile hike across open desert sandstone with no marked trail and no shade, using a topographic map or GPS coordinates to navigate to the formation. There are no signs pointing to it. If you are not prepared, you will not find it. What you find, if you do, is a trough of Navajo sandstone carved by wind and water into a series of curving, layered formations that look like they are flowing. The rock strata, bands of orange, red, pink, cream, and brown laid down over millions of years and then tilted and carved, appear to move. Photographs of the formation are frequently suspected of digital manipulation by people seeing them for the first time. They are not manipulated. The rock actually looks like that. The Navajo sandstone that forms the wave was deposited as desert dunes approximately 190 million years ago during the Jurassic period. The individual sand grains were cemented into rock by calcium carbonate over immense time, and the iron oxide content of different layers produces the color variation visible in the banding. The curved, wave-like topography is the result of differential erosion. Some layers are harder than others, and wind and water have carved the softer layers more deeply, producing the flowing forms. Access is controlled by a permit lottery run by the Bureau of Land Management. There are 2 ways to enter: an advance lottery that opens 4 months before the desired visit date, and a walk-up lottery conducted the day before for any remaining permits. The advance lottery receives thousands of applications for the 48 daily advance permits. The walk-up lottery is conducted in person in Kanab and is slightly less competitive, though still far from guaranteed. In recent years, the advance lottery has received over 60,000 applications for roughly 5,000 available days of permits, acceptance rates in the low single digits. The permit system exists because the formation is genuinely fragile. The sandstone surface is soft enough to be damaged by foot traffic, and with no marked trail, visitors in the early years would walk directly across the most visually striking parts of the formation, compressing the rock surface. The Bureau of Land Management implemented the lottery in 1999, when damage from uncontrolled visitor numbers became visible. Former BLM ranger Glenn Roper, who has guided permitted visitors to the wave for years, once said, "People come out here expecting something dramatic, and the thing that surprises them most is that it's quiet. There are almost no other people. The rock does the work, and there's nothing competing with it." It is a piece of Jurassic desert preserved in almost exactly the state it was in before anyone knew it existed. Getting there requires luck, preparation, and the willingness to walk across open desert with a map and no trail markers. The people who make it consistently describe it as one of the better decisions they've made. The ones who don't know it exists, which is most people, have something genuinely extraordinary still waiting for them. 10 places that exist right now in America, accessible to anyone with the time, the right permit, and the willingness to actually get there. None of them require an international flight or a passport. Several of them require nothing more than a drive and a hike, and almost none of them show up on the list of things most Americans know about their own country. The famous places are famous for good reasons, but the places on this list are the ones that reward the people who go looking, rather than the people who follow the crowd. There is a glowing canyon in Alabama, a growing geyser in Nevada, and a piece of Jurassic desert in Arizona that looks like it was designed by someone who had never seen a rock formation before and had no constraints on their imagination. They are all still there, waiting. If this one was worth your time, hit that like button and subscribe. There is a lot more of this kind of thing coming.